it's important to know that we're not like in that jail that we create for ourselves. And Glenda, you said how we have to validate ourselves and see. I have a friend, he bought a Porsche, and when he's drunk, he's telling me that he enjoyed it for like a week or two, and now he can't sell it because what would other people think?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the You versus You podcast, where I talk with members of the Council for Human Development and the connected community about how we can expand our minds and recode reality. Hey Brenda, David, and Glenda, thank you so much for joining me today. As you're joining for the first time, Glenda, I thought you can tell us something a little bit about yourself and also the beliefs and values you were raised with.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Agnes. Well, I'm very glad to be here today. It's my first time. So a bit about myself. I'm from Singapore. All the while born and bred in Singapore. The only time that I'm out of the country is when I'm studying overseas in Sydney. So that was in university, and that is the time where it opens up my world, because having been born in and raised up in an Asian family, since young we were told to what's right and what's wrong. And the thing is, we don't even have a chance to ask why we are supposed to do this. And I remember when I was young, I asked a lot of why, like why this and why not this, why that and why not the other. But my parents just say, just follow. Yeah. So this is quite frustrating for many of us. But I think because since everyone is doing the same thing, so we kind of don't think and just follow accordingly, just go with the flow. So, well, it's the same story as the rest of the folks. After university, we were told to, get a job. In fact, I remember very clearly when I was in Sydney, I told my dad, I said, hey, I want to be a barista, because during then there's this coffee culture in Sydney. And I thought, hey, it's pretty cool. And the way I observe all of them, they are so proud doing what they are doing, even the waiting staff. And I like that idea. And every time when I go into the restaurant, I receive a cup of coffee, I feel so welcome. It just makes my day. So I told my dad, hey, I want to, I graduated then. Hey, I want to be a barista. I'd like to stay on. And he told me if I were to stay on, he's going to cut off all my finances. So I have no choice but to return back to Singapore and get a proper job. So I've been in finance industry, this time in corporate, and the same thing, doing like what most of the employed people are doing, waking up at the same time, having the same breakfast, driving on the same road, year after year is the same. And I realized that yes, financially it does give us that kind of reward, but over the years I find that I got very burnout, and I can't become a zombie because life has become meaningless. And I find that, hey, life shouldn't be like this. And if, let's say, I were to continue with the rest of my life, I just can't face that. So I thought there must be something that, out of what I'm doing. And of course, I wasn't exposed in anything. So I've been like going round and round and round. And at one point, a few years ago, I was in fact on depression. I was on medication. And it's really a dark place that I don't think anyone wants to go there.
And as you mentioned, you were raised in the beginning to follow, and you were taught what is wrong and what is right. Can you give us some of the examples of what you were taught that is right and what is wrong? And I think it's also funny that you mentioned that you had to get a proper job, and that in your language, a barista wouldn't be a proper job. So maybe tell us a little bit about your viewpoint there as well.
Okay. So what happened was when I was raising up, when I was, because both my parents, my dad is an entrepreneur, and my mom, she gave up her career to be a stay-at-home mom. So she taught us, and she's very strict about how we should behave. So, for example, okay, good example. When I was young, I remember that I like to play with my neighbors, and I like to do sleepover. So I asked my mom, I said, hey, can I do a sleepover at my neighbor's place? My mom said, no. I asked her, why not? So she said that, because it's not nice for a girl to do a sleepover in, a neighbor's place. And especially as a girl, I mean, of course, I understand where she's coming from because of the security issues, safety issues. Yeah. So this is just one aspect of it. And I also remember that when I was young, I think 9 years old, my friend said, hey, Glenda, let's go for a movie. I said, great, let's do that. And I told my mom, I asked her, hey, I'd like to go for a movie with my friend. She said, no. I asked her, why not? And she told me that, okay, because in the movie it's dark, you never know who's sitting beside you, that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's, I mean, that is pretty, I don't, because I'm not a parent, so I can't really relate to it. But I feel that to some certain extent, there should be some, freedom, that kind of thing. Yeah. And if I ask, okay, so back to that question, another question on a proper job. Now, in this Asian context, a proper job means to say that you get employed, you receive a decent salary. And in their view, it's like an office job. So something like 9 to 5, you get so-called a decent pay. And to them, they view as serving others is not like a proper job. It's like, you're having fun of it. And to them, in their view, this job is not stable, that kind of thing. I don't know whether you guys can relate to that.
And when was the time for you that your inner world started changing and you started questioning things more and exploring consciousness?
I would say that when, okay, importantly, I feel that environment is so, so important. We can't emphasize, enough of it. When I was studying in Sydney, I was exposed to a word that everybody speak up. And for example, in Singapore, you can never see people going on strike. People will not, in Singapore, they will not raise their view publicly, okay, because this was never allowed in Singapore. So I remember ever since when I was young, I've never seen what strike is going on unless it's on TV. So you can see I'm living in a perfect world. But until when I'm overseas in Sydney, I realized, hey, even in the university environment, people do voice up, So I start to question, hey, why isn't this happening where I was born? Are they really happy with the current environment? And if they are not happy about it, why don't they raise up? A very good example I would say is, whenever I'm in a cab in Singapore, you will realize that all this driver, they have a lot of grievances, they have a lot of unpleasant within them. And that's the reason why they like to chit chat with the passenger. They like to voice out their point of view. And I guess this is their only means of releasing themselves. So I remember once I asked a taxi driver, hey, why don't you just speak out? They say, in Singapore, we are not allowed to do that, which is true, which is so true. So I would say that my consciousness really happened when I was in overseas during the university. But I guess when I'm back to Singapore, and when you're back in that environment, this whole thing, the whole environment, you got so overwhelmed that you've forgotten about this. And you are just, you get so blinded. And You get blinded by your goals, your aspirations, so-called, peer pressure, and you start this question, the voice of question start to be drowned by what's going on around you. And you find that, okay, all these things don't matter after all. Until when many, many years later, you just feel, there's something within you that needs to be exploded out. And it's just too much to bear. And this question will start to come back again and again.
Okay, cool. I think David and Brenda, you can both relate to different views because you were also both abroad. And I think that also started a process for you to question things. David, can you tell us a little bit what are the factors that you identified that were holding you back to live your whole potential?
Yeah. Hey, first, Glenda, I admire you a lot because I've said it before. We talked to Sarah, who has a religious background that was very tough for her to, as a woman, to really come to those conclusions that you have come. And so I have a lot of respect because for me, it was easier because the upbringing was like nice and shiny. It was like, there was not like big obstacles. But what I had is that I get bored really fast. So, and I actually think that the permanence that we create in our life, that we don't want to give up like old stuff to try something new, that is blocking us on a lot of occasions. And basically, I started working in the bank I didn't know any of this, and I just saw the people there, how I started new and I was full of enthusiasm. I read some books and let's do this, and I got stopped from every angle. Whatever I tried, it's like, oh, go sit and wait and do that and do this. And I started to hang out with them. I saw the relationships that they're having. I saw the conversations that they're having. And, I just told myself, I'm 20, I don't know, I was 28 or something. I was like, this is not what I want. I don't want to fight with my wife all the time. I don't want to, have to get out of the house because I can't stand the kids. I don't want to always complain. And, I don't always want to, put others down. And it's not what I wanted. And then I started, discovering, and once you start asking the right questions, as we know, the answers will come. And so it was pretty, you know, it was is a lot smoother, I think. But that's why I have so much respect for people like Glenda, and my girlfriend now also. She's from Kosovo and brought up, from what I've heard, very traditionally, and but it builds character. I have to tell you, she's like, she knows what she wants. She's like the head of the family. Like, she runs stuff because she's confident now, and so it's super cool. And I, have tremendous respect for. But it's just saying that there's hundreds, thousands, millions of ways how to get there. So there's no right and wrong, but respect.
But because you also mentioned your girlfriend, don't you think that if you then overcome it, that you're just like way stronger than other people who had an easier path?
Yeah, that's a good question. As long I feel like as long as, look, if you're, for example, born into a super rich family, we know, and it's proven that there's a big difference, somebody getting rich by actually putting in work, like the American dream, or somebody being born into a rich family and becoming a brat. um but I'm saying that, just because somebody is born into a rich family, I'm not saying that I'm born into a rich family, but it was like pretty supportive environment. But let's say, as long as I still make that shift and I want to go to the same direction as Glenda does, I think it's fine. It would be like a waste of human potential if you just sit there, you think everything is given to you, and you stop developing. Because that's the problem. People, when they think they have everything, they stop learning, they stop evolving, and that's when life's over. Gonna get boring.
Brenda, can you tell us a little bit how your environment shaped you and supported you in overcoming, in living your full potential, basically?
Yeah. So also a lot of respect for you, Glenda, that you are here, even though you come from such a background. And mentioning that, so I come from a country which is very open-minded, very supportive. So there, even you are in a bad state, you feel limited, you feel all this pain inside, you will always have someone to support you. So it's on a good side, it's good, but on the other side, it's also like it's such a safe place that you don't have to overcome something. You don't have to work on yourself to actually get somewhere happy, because you feel so supported and you feel so much love around. Also on the streets, you feel so much intimacy with the people that you don't even know, that you don't feel that need to actually get out of where you are. Because even though you are limited, but you are not super unhappy because you have all that around you. And for me, when I came here, it's when everything started. I started realizing how much of my inside was needing to grow and to change. And I realized that through Switzerland, through a different culture, which is more or was more close, very focused, very square. And so it started of me thinking, oh my God, I don't have what they have. I am not that what they are. So I started to wish to conform or to wish to be something that I was not. And there is where the whole path started.
And for you, because you say that where you come from, people are more open and everyone is also more connected just on the streets. So how was for you the difference? Because I can imagine that you feel kind of more warmth and belonging over there compared to Switzerland.
Totally. Yes. It's still challenging. Here I have found all the ways of feeling that connection and feeling that belonging. And in the beginning, I found it out on the bad way, because I was trying then to integrate. I was trying to conform to what they could handle. And so I completely minimized all what I was. So I suppressed Brenda to actually fit into this society. And then I to the point where I thought, oh my God, if this is integration, it feels like being dead. It really felt like that. If I'm conforming to feel integrated into this culture, I'm killing myself slowly. And over the past weeks since I started the program Council for Human Development, I've realized that what I have been doing. So now it's finding my way, accepting me again, who I am with all of my intensiveness and everything that I have, accepting it and saying, hey, this is who I am. If the culture likes it or not, I respect how they are, but I don't conform anymore to what they want me to be.
And were there certain thoughts that especially helped you in that time to accept yourself and also to, let free of who you are and stop suppressing?
It helped me the thing of what Kearns usually says: people think they think, but they don't think. That helped me a lot. And the webinars that we have been having and listening to what is going on people's minds, even though they have a career, even though they are from a very developed country and so on, to actually see that other people also have internal issues. And they know a lot of things, but they are still not happy. That helped me a lot to say, hey, maybe knowing all of that stuff doesn't actually help me. that's what that completely changed my perspective.
Mm-hmm. And I think, Glenda, you can also maybe relate to this, because I can imagine that you, how you grew up, that you were also partly suppressing who you really are. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, in fact, because in Singapore, they emphasize a lot on education. And in fact, like David, I do swim competitively in school, but this wasn't very encouraged because, first of all, the government don't support us at all. And my mom saying, hey, you can forget about that.
Go get a job.
Yes. So I can fully understand. And also, you see, when I was growing up, I have different aspiration, different aspect of it, which I think, like David, we got bored easily. We want to try something. But my mom would just say, don't think about it. Just focus on study. And the rest, in future, you'll be fine. But what is the definition of fine? Because in their mind, they just say that, okay, you go into a good company and you can find someone and you marry and you give birth to a child, you will live happily for the rest of your life. But, the thing is, I don't conform, first of all, because, yes, I'm married. But the thing is, everyone, of the moment you got married, people will ask you, when are you having the first kid? When are you going to, you're not getting younger and younger. But the thing is, I just ask myself, okay, what is the reason behind it? There must be a right reason. See, this is just my way of it. Luckily I have a supportive husband, so it's not too bad. And yeah, so in Singapore, a lot of times it's really the way we behave. We also are very aware of our peer pressure. So we strive so that we can show to our peers that we are doing well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of action going on. Yeah.
And David, can you tell us what your experiences were? Because I can also imagine that during your time in banking, you were also suppressing a part of who you really are.
Yeah, I didn't really suffer. I just thought like, okay, I'm young and okay, I don't know it. They must know. And it's a bit different than what I've learned and what I've read in the books. And my enthusiasm for it went down because in the beginning I was like learning a lot. But then, well, that was one of the big things. After 2 years, when I first started, it was all new connections. It was new programs. I had like 6 big screens. It was Bloomberg, like all these cool things that, you go to school and you're like, wow, you see like those trading floors and that's what you want, and then you're there and you have it and you learn and you go to nice restaurants all of a sudden, you drink nice wine and all. So it's like it's flashy stuff and you get sidetracked. And then, but the more you do that, the more, normal it becomes, the more you're being focused on materialistic stuff. Then you say, okay, I worked hard all year. I didn't suffer. I didn't say I suffered, but I put in a lot of work that I would have spent somewhere else probably if I had the choice. So I'm going to buy myself something nice now with the bonus. I'm going to treat myself to this and that. So it's becoming this, I wrote a short paper a while ago. I never published it, but it was escaping the golden cage. Because in Switzerland, it's a bit like that. You have that, you're in the golden cage, and you can't get out. And I'm not, for some people, I had a lot of discussions about it and they say, well, but some people love their golden cage. All right, fine. But what I'm saying is that still, if you have the option to open the door and have the door open, so at all times you can go out and there's the possibility to go out, that's cooler than if it's closed and it's a golden cage. And there's like an analogy. But what happened to me was I started to get bored. I saw, okay, I'm doing the same stuff after 2 years. I was speaking to the same people. And then artificial intelligence, people were being let go from other banks. And I started to think as well, not that I was scared, but I started to think. And it's like, yeah, what I'm doing, it could easily be replaced. And if they wanted to. And so then, my boss didn't necessarily like me that much because I was, trying to innovate, which was, not to his liking. So he wanted to stay in his garden, and then things added up and I got angry and I left. But the analogy was with tiger and the golden cage. I think it's quite a good one. If you imagine a tiger that's been not in a zoo, but say in a circus, you know, performing the, I don't know how you call that, maneuvers or you know, the things in front of the public. The tiger like, is the cage, and you could imagine if you just take that cage and put it in front of like a forest, a wild forest where the tiger could go out, and you open the door, maybe you know the tiger will like confusedly look around, but it will just like sit there, or maybe like look outside and go back in the cage. You know, it will take probably a long time until the tiger actually, you know, its courage is enough to go out of the cage, maybe look back one more or two more times, and then actually peace out and, you know, take off and go into freedom. And but that analogy, you know, the golden cage, just, you know that there is a door. And so I think it's always better to have more options for you. So if you can't open it, you can still stay in it or half in it or keep coming back, whatever you want. But it's important to know that we're not like in that jail that we create for ourselves. And you know, Glenda, you said how we have to validate ourselves and see. You know, I have a friend, he bought a Porsche, and when he's drunk, he's telling me that he, you know, he enjoyed it for like a week or two, and now he can't sell it because what would other people think? And you know, I was like, man, you really, if that is your like, I'm sorry, but you know, I trying to help, but they don't see it at that moment. So it's, yeah, it's a bit tough, but it's, yeah, not such a cool problem to have, to not being able to sell the Porsche because of what other people think. No, not so cool.
But because you say escaping the golden cage, and that seems to be a comfortable place. So what do you think are the benefits if someone breaks out?
Adventure. Adventure, like the energy for life comes back. It's like you're meeting new people, you're gonna eat new foods, you're gonna try new drinks, you're gonna go to new places, you're gonna talk about new topics, you're gonna everything. It changes. And really, it was the same as in swimming. When I was swimming, I thought, wow, I swam next to Michael Phelps, I met him, and we, you know, we play poker, and that's it. But when you go outside of swimming, you realize this is like it's a small bubble. It's like literally, you know, nobody else cares about swimming unless it's like the Olympics. Nobody cares. But I thought this is it. And then I was in banking, and you're like, you know, I go to the military 3 weeks a year, and you know, the people, they don't even know, have no idea where the euro trades to the Swiss franc. They have no clue that there's, you know, that many currencies. Like nobody cares. So I was again in that bubble, and I thought that's all there is, and you get caught in it. But once you open yourself, and that's basically what we're saying, just expand your mind in whatever topic that is. If it's your mind, if it's the relationships, is it food, is it where we come from, is it what can we do in the world? It doesn't matter. Expand your mind, and it take like holistic, and that's fun, and it's really, you're growing. And that's why we're here to learn, evolve, and grow. And that's what you do when you put yourself into new situations. Just look at the people that travel a lot. Why do you think everybody loves traveling? Why do you think like the people that go from one culture like Brenda and come to another one, why do they grow so much? Why do they go back to Mexico and they have a completely like a new, you know, they have new insights that Mexican people that live there all the time will probably not have. And so, yeah, it's growth, it's adventure.
And you said you never published that article. Why not?
Question, because I took some of the sentences weren't mine. I didn't want to get in trouble.
And Brenda, did you have any experiences when it comes to escaping the golden cage?
Oh, It was, well, what I realized yesterday, it's we go through darkness, or to get to light, we have to go through darkness. And that's it. If you are afraid of darkness, if you don't want to go through darkness, you are setting yourself away from light. So you are choosing to stay already in the dark because you are not moving. So for me, that was a big breakthrough yesterday, and getting out of the cage is just the best thing someone can do. You realize that the things that were holding you on inside the cage, they were just illusions, and they were not they were so easy once you were ready to see that. Once you were ready to really open the door and say, okay, now I'm opening, and whatever is there, it can come. I'm ready to see it. Once you get that decision, you see the things and it's like, oh, but it's not that bad. I mean, it was horrible as I thought about it. But once I dare to see it and go through it, it's like, okay, it's not that bad. So it's just liberating and great.
Can you share some of the illusions that really got to you?
So one illusion, it's one of the hardest ones, I guess, in my whole life. It's the fact that I grew up believing that my father has left us. And we never spoke about my father in my family, never. I met him when I was 7 years old, and I never wanted to see him again. So he had another family, and I started building my own story. Okay, he left because he chose another woman, and he built a better family than what we had before. That's the story that I built for myself. Not true. That was not the truth. And I overheard my mom talking once when I was maybe 25, and it was a completely different story. And I was like, what? So that what I have been believing my whole life, it was not true. And since then, I mean, the truth will release you. And since then, it's like every time going out of these illusions that are just not real.
And you found out the truth when you were 25. How come that there was no moment before that you ever talked with your mom about it or with someone from your family, and that somehow it started questioning everything?
So my father was a taboo in my family. It was a subject not to touch because it was so sensitive. My sister would get very I mean, she would get affected about the subject. I didn't want to touch a subject with my mom because I thought it would hurt her if I would come and ask her. My grandmother, no. My uncles, no. Everyone, and if I would ask something, it would say, "He's an asshole. He's an asshole." That was the only answer. So there was no way.
So do you have currently a relationship with your dad?
I don't have it, but I'm open to it. And yeah, I don't hate him anymore, which is very liberating.
So that feeling for you changed. So why isn't there really the action to build a relationship that you let go of this illusion?
Well, he's in Mexico to begin with, and I don't have his phone number or anything, but if I go to Mexico, I will for sure try to find him.
And Glenda, can you maybe share some of the illusions that you were fighting with that had a big influence on your life?
Illusion. I would say that because all those beliefs that we were painted since young, that my parents keeps telling us that okay, we have to go through the proper so-called the system. Don't be an entrepreneur because entrepreneur's life is not great. High risk. Yes, which I've seen how my dad's life is, which is true, but the thing is, it's also rewarding as well. So we were told that, okay, the best job, the best industry is finance. So in Singapore, just go to finance, which is true because we are very so-called pretty highly paid in the finance industry. But the thing is, when I'm in this finance industry, I realize that everybody is putting a mask on. They are like fraud. Sometimes they don't know what they are doing. And the only so-called goals that they have is fighting on the material stuff, comparing with each other. And that is pretty meaningless. And so I initially, when I was in the industry, I have this illusion. I thought that, okay, this is a very glamorous job, like what David mentioned. Yes, have the ability to enjoy the finest thing in life. But think of this, we are actually using our time in exchange of income. So if you break down to per hour, basically it's not that great after all. Yeah, and right now it's also very high risk environment because of compliance issue. So if you get a very unhappy client, perhaps the client might decide to sue you for wrong advice. So that could be it. So I realized that these are some of the illusions that was painted along the way. And I just feel that, importantly is for us, being employed is not the only route. We should be free to, explore other, to pursue our own interests. I think this is something that's being expressed in most of the population. I can't say that it's worldwide. But as far as Singapore is concerned, it's really very expressed. So it's only until recently, governments start to have this awareness. That's why in terms of our population, we have a lot of employed and very few entrepreneur. But if you look at those entrepreneurs, their background, because they have very good family support, because they are born in a rich family. They kind of like automatically, being passed down or being hand over by the, to take over this family business. Something. Yeah. So I would say that this is one of the illusions that was given to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And for someone that really wants to start identifying their own illusions and wants to overcome them, David, do you have any tips on some kind of ritual or process that personally helped you that someone can apply?
Yeah, well, at the moment, I think the simplest thing right now is to use what happened with Corona and just take the situation, assume that you don't know anything, as most of us don't, and just assume to widen your horizon. So see what material is out there, see what different people say, and you will see that there is the range of what is possible. It's huge. So the truth is anywhere from super dark to super bright, and it's somewhere in between. And so chances are, I'm guessing that somebody has like an opinion, maybe somewhere in the middle, and that that this is the truth is very, 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 very unlikely, because we don't know, we don't have a way to measure it. So what I'm suggesting is, if this is not the truth, then what we can do is, as always, it's not black and white. So we just look at what the options are. And when you do that, for a banker, for example, I was meeting one of my friends yesterday, and I told him about the Fed, the American Central Bank. So how it's, privately controlled and owned basically through the New York Fed, and, how it's, when it was founded, how a lot of the opposition, super rich people died in the Titanic, all in 1913, all these things. Like, I had no idea when I was working for a bank. He was working for a bank for 20 years and he had no idea. So I sent him a paper. And, I think this is, if they take it seriously, and if people, well, you need to be you need to be ready to accept, because otherwise you'll just fight everything. If it's the ego, if you're acting. So I think we wanted to mention the shadow self, the ego, that basically makes us think that we are all that we can be and what we know is true. And so we get a little bit defensive and maybe a bit aggressive if other people, show us evidence or show us information that doesn't suit our beliefs and what we grew up with. It's because it's challenging. But if you're up for it, then with the current crisis, you have like so much to look at, and there's material all over. I mean, LondonReal.tv is with Brian Rose. I like his Freedom Platform, for example. He has a lot of independent experts on it that give different views on vaccines, on the monetary, policy, what is going on. And, it's, you start to connect the dots, and it's really like that system of a stepping stone. You take a step, because you're not afraid to stay where you are. So you're okay with going into the unknown. You don't need to have to control everything. So you're okay, you do that, and you start to see things in a different place. You start to see new things ahead of you. You start to see things in the back that happen. You start to understand, why did my brother flip out on me? You start to click, 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 and that's progress. And again, that makes us happy, because we are. I have no doubt in my mind that we are here to progress and to evolve, because that's what makes us happy, to do it together, also not to do it like alone, because it's quite boring. And so, yeah, use this current situation and just inform yourself and think about. That would be my tip. Think about what you want. What if assume that 5% is conscious thought, 95% is a autonomous program. Assume that this is proven until 6 or 7 years. As a kid, you have no conscious thought, so it's all downloaded. And so if you go see if that is true, and if it's true, think about, what does that mean for you? What does that mean for your first 7 years of your life? What were you told? Do you remember it? If just think, and the answers will come.
Brenda, do you have anything that you would like to add? Any tips for someone?
Yeah, I would say that what I said before, there to step into the darkness, and always knowing where you want to go. So I'm stepping into the darkness because I want to expand, because I want to get out of where I'm currently in. Not stepping into the darkness and I'm staying there. No, it's just I'm stepping into the darkness. I'm seeing what I'm afraid of seeing, but because I'm going to a brighter place. And that's just an ongoing work. That's my tip.
Glenda, do you also want to add anything?
Yeah, I would say that importantly, we have to face ourselves. We have to recognize, really, rip off that ego. Because before this journey, I thought that, this is who I am. I'm very certain that this is what I want. But ultimately, I have to resign to the fact that, no, this is not, because a lot of time we have this fear in us and we don't dare to face that. So I would say that that first step of facing, like what Brenda said, facing that darkness is very important, because we know that, yes, we can be walking down to the tunnel, but we do see that light. It's just, no matter how long it takes, we are going to reach there. So I would say that, is that courage. Yeah.
Agnes, what would you, to overcome illusions that we have, what would you do? How would you start?
What I would do, I think it's really important to put yourself in a different environment and to talk to the people that you admire. So, for example, for me, I just partly schedule virtual coffees with people that I admire and that have skills that I would like to have, and that I know that are further in their personal development journey. And then I just talk to them about my own insecurities and also like the things that are holding me back. And these conversations are not easy sometimes, because you have to take a deep look in the mirror. But it also helps. I feel like it brings me further. And it's not an easy process, but I think it already starts by identifying what are the problem areas you have, or like what are the insecurities you have. So I think, like, for example, a lot of people have insecurities to talk to others or just to approach others because of titles or age. And that's also something that I was fighting with a year ago, but now I don't have it anymore. And I think that's a lot through communicating and taking small steps.
Mm-hmm. And you say it's not easy. It's not easy, but it needs to be safe. And that's why, like you say, virtual coffee, that's pretty cool. And I mean, with all that, with all that we do, we always say that if as long it needs to be safe, it needs to be a safe environment, because making mistakes, being exposed is like the biggest, for a lot of people, it's the biggest worry that we have, right? To make mistakes, what will others think, and am I good enough, and all these things. So when it's safe and we can share, that is the, in my opinion, that's the key to progress as well. The environment and the safety of it. because it's not easy. We know it. But if it's safe, what do we have to lose? Nothing. And Simon, he said it really nice in the video. He's like, he would be the dumbest ass on this planet if he didn't like at least give it a try. And that, you know, it resonates with, I think, all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also what's not easy is that in the beginning, if you try to expose yourself a little bit and there's like a small thing that someone else does, you try to see everything to run away.
Yeah.
And there's just a small thing and you personally make a big thing out of it and you're like, okay, no, that's not the person. Like I'm leaving. Glenda, would you like to add anything to that?
I would say that through this platform, you will realize that the whatever we are facing, we are basically not alone. So the best thing is because every one of us, we are at different stage and we have that different experience. So we could, in a way, with that experience and with our knowledge, to pull each other, to bring each other's up. And also we can walk out of that tunnel faster towards the light, much faster. I think that's important. Yeah. So this is something that I find that, you know, because many a times when if we are alone, we tend to magnify our own issue, thinking that, oh, you know, this is the only issue that I have in the whole world. Why is it got to be me? So a lot of, you know, me focus. But when we are in a group, you realize that, hey, you know, in fact, I'm not alone. And perhaps after talking, you will realize that whatever things that we are focusing on is actually, you know, just so tiny at the end. Yeah.
Thank you so much for all of your input today, everyone. And if you want to find out more, make sure to check out councilforhumandevelopment.org. And please share the podcast with your friends on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter with the hashtag Council for Human Development.